There are different kinds of heaters in the market. This is a relatively inexpensive 400-watt glass heater. This is more than enough for a 40-gallon tank. Um, Probably even do a 200-watt for a 40-gallon tank. So use something like this if you're growing tilapia or some kind of tropical species. So that's the small version. This is a larger heater that's got the much larger titanium element along with a separate control box that lets you set an upper and lower limit for your temperature. Whereas this glass titanium one is just a dial. You set it and then you kind of play with it until you get it where you want it. This is a chiller box. If you're working with cold water fish like trout, you're going to want some kind of chiller like this to keep the water temperature around 65 degrees. If you're doing rainbow trout, for example, you're going to want it even lower, like around 60. Brook trout, or even lower than that. So that basically just cools the water and pumps it back into the tank the way I have it set up here. There's lots of ways to set them up, but the important part is that gray box with the green numbers on it. All of the organisms in your system are going to require air. That's why you're going to need one of these. This is an air pump. Relatively simple, straightforward air pump. It's got 2 exit ports. You're basically going to want 2 air stones, one that goes down in the biofilter to provide oxygen for the bacteria, and then one that goes up in the tank to provide oxygen for your fish. Water circulation is very important, so you're going to want 1, if not 2 of these. So if you're just doing a recirculating aquaculture system, then you just need 1 pump. So this goes down in the biofilter. We'll put a hose on this and run it up and drop it into the fish tank. And this will provide our water circulation, so we're moving that biofiltered clean water up to the top of the system where the fish are the first thing that gets it, and then it runs down, back through all the different layers. If you're doing aquaponics, the way this thing is set up, you're going to have a second pump to pump to your aquaponic loop, which is going to be separate and flow through that loop, feed your plants, and then back into the biofilter. This up, I've added some things on here. This is the hose coming up from the biofilter down below. I've secured it on top by drilling 2 holes in the rim and putting a zip tie or cable tie on top just to make sure that it can't easily back out and end up dumping water all over the floor. Ultimately, I'll probably put a second cable tie in over here and do the same thing just to make sure it stays in place. And then I've added some netting on here. So fish and shrimp like to jump, so you can deal with that. This is just basic bird netting by putting some of this over the top, and I'm using essentially paper clips to hold it in place. It doesn't have to be super tight, it just has to be enough so that when they hit it, it springs them back down into the tank. I want to show you the cart that I'm using for this setup. If you're at a school, you may have one of these sitting around where you can co-opt it or otherwise steal it from whoever's got it. Because of the amount of weight we're going to put on top of this, so 40 pounds times 8, we need something that's pretty well reinforced. So this cart has underneath, kind of see them, those metal bands. So this is a reinforced AV cart made by Luxor with these metal bands running across the top, which are going to reinforce the upper deck and keep it from flexing. Also, if you look here, and here, what you'll see is a 1¼ inch tube that's actually holding this thing together. It's the original leg. And I put inside of that a piece of 1-inch PVC, basically cut to the same length. 1¼ goes over. This is 1 inch inside, so you can actually slide a 1-inch piece into this, a 1¼ inch over. That gives you a double reinforced leg that's going to be less likely to buckle. The other thing to be worried about with these carts is the wheels. That's kind of the last flex point. So if you can get wheels that are rated to 600 or 800 pounds, that would be great. Other thing I had to tweak to fit it onto this cart so it's got a smaller footprint is we got rid of the third 17-gallon compartment and I put together a 5-gallon. Same Commander make as the totes, also comes from Lowe's. It's got a bulkhead in the back, so this is actually the piece of rubber that's coming down from the tank. It flows now into the bottom of this container. The water comes up and flows out the side into our second stage filter. On the inside, we have this. This is basically a carousel of 1/2-inch PVC made with bunch of three-way sections on there. So we've made a little frame and then cut our Metalamat to fit inside of this, so it just sort of drops in. So the water comes into the bottom, it has to percolate up through and go out the top into this next stage. So the water then now comes into this, it goes through our 4 filtration components here, out through the stand-up, and into our bottom section, our biofilter on the bottom. This layer is entirely about letting things settle. Water comes into the front section, has to slowly make its way through the mats. That's going to trap a bunch of the solids. And then this back section with the exit port up high means water is going to have to slowly come up and then drain slowly through down into the next section. So we have our filter mats here. Made some braces to hold those together. Those are 4 layers, including essentially an air filter mat that comes from Lowe's. It's a nice fine-grained filter. It'll trap lots of stuff. It will require cleaning. It just kind of gave us a 4th fine layer to add to this. I drilled a hole in the media cart right here, so the bulkhead could drop right through, so it was all contained on the cart and nothing was hanging over. This is the pipe that comes out from underneath. That pipe will go into the biofilter where we'll have the pump set up and the aerator. And you can see that I drilled a hole through the media cart just to accommodate the bulkhead so everything fits neatly on the cart.